Hello, I'm Nicholas Love, Chief Executive Officer with the Color Group, and I guess I have to add another title, Executive Director and Founder of our new nonprofit called Dope Thinkers. We'll talk a little bit about that in some additional episodes down the line, but I am joined by a very phenomenal, intelligent, powerful mind, and Ms. Julia Rock, CEO of Rock Career Development. Julia, thank you for taking the time to join me.
Man, thank you so much, Nick, for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited about our conversation. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Same here. Same here. So, today's episode will really be kind of diving into leadership principles, leadership really as a construct, and quite frankly, how not to suck as a leader. And that's sometimes easier said than done. But before we kind of get into that, Julia, would love to kind of give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your company as well.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much. So, as you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO at Rock Career Development, and I'm a leadership consultant. And so, our organization, we partner with companies to help them retain their best talent and get the best out of them, but through leadership transformation. So, what we do is we provide speaking, coaching, training, and consulting services to help these companies uncover and address leadership gaps, to help address high turnover, low morale, low productivity, and really making sure that the work environment is thriving and healthy and the employees want to be there. But we do that through the lens of leadership. Other people can do benefits and team building and perk packages and all that, but our focus is leadership because we know, research shows that 70% of employee engagement variation is driven by manager behavior. So that's where we choose to focus. And a little bit about me, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, but I reside in Houston, Texas. And I'm just somebody who loves to serve. I love to serve. I love to help people. And that's why I started my business in the first place is how can I serve, especially those who look like me, create a better workplace experience for them.
Oh wow. Well, certainly I hear a lot of impetus on cultural intelligence probably being an area of focus, and we'll dive into that. But before we do, I hear you say that you love to serve. Talk to us a little bit about what you do the most with love.
Wow. So there's a couple of different things that I do with love. One is around helping young people. And there are a lot of young people who are seeking to whether it's get into the workforce or start their careers. And so I seek to mentor and provide insights, especially for young people of color. The environment's not the same for folks of color in corporate. Let's just be honest about that.
Right.
And so helping them to navigate certain landmines, just letting them know how to set up a network, how to have community within where they are. So I seek to mentor others, and then I also talk to young women about confidence as well. Especially when you get into corporate again, there's a lot of opportunity for your confidence to be taken from you, beaten down, and because people don't see you as human, they don't see your point as valid. And so, really working to help cultivate confidence and allowing people to advocate for themselves, especially women.
Wow, wow. I guess for you, kind of what was that moment or what was that theme, if you will, that said, Julia, leadership is what I'm called to help guide and coach. What kind of inspired that?
It's funny because, I started my company really around career coaching. And so I was doing a lot of one on one coaching. And so I did that for almost 2 decades on the side as I built graduated from school, built my professional career. And I kept hearing the same themes over and over and over again. Most of the people who were coming to me for career coaching and thinking about leaving, as we got to the root of their issues, it wasn't just, I hate my job. It
Hmm.
was that I hate the environment, or I'm having this issue with my boss. My boss doesn't understand me. We don't have a good working relationship. And I kept hearing that theme over and over again. So I'm like, so it's not the work for most people,
Right.
it's the environment and the leadership they have. And then as I was going through my own career journey, I had an opportunity to live in Buenos Aires, Argentina for 2 years and lead a large team there. And as I saw how strong leadership made a difference in the attrition rates that we had and the cohesion in the team, I realized I'm like, this is where my work is. this is what I'm called to do. I'm called to be a different type of leader in my own life, but also being able to educate and serve other leaders who want to be effective because they're going to be able to keep people in their teams. People aren't going to be hiring career coaches to leave because they're going to want to stay in the environment with the good leadership. And so those are the two things that really got me to say, this is where you make your impact. Some people are called to ministry in the sense of going and preaching and teaching and all those kinds of things. This is my ministry.
Beautiful, beautiful. How do you describe yourself as a leader?
So I would describe myself as a leader who cares about the whole person.
Mm.
I have a strong personality and I do like results. I want people to produce and perform well, but I realize that people cannot perform well if they themselves are not well, if no one is paying attention to the rest of them, if they're just seen as a worker bee or just as a number.
Yes.
And so because of I care about the whole person, I typically don't care how things get done, right? So people have this like you got to get it done in this systematic step. I'm like, just do it. If you've got to go take your kid and go do the whatever, but you get it done, I don't really care. Just give me the thing. And so it's having that level of empathy to understand that people's lives are not mine. I'm not married. I don't have any kids, so I don't understand what that life is like for them. And so being understanding of other people's situations, their lifestyles, what may be happening in their personal life. They're not just at work all day. They have a whole life
Right.
outside of work. So I care about the whole person.
Yeah, one of the things that you said really, resonates with a core philosophy in terms of how I would describe my leadership style, both, leading color group and really past positions. And, one of my thematic sayings has always been vision is singular and leadership is plural.
Mhm.
And, and as long as we have and share a common goal or a common objective, how we get to that can be different, right? And really leaning on the strengths of the collective in our pathway getting there is both a learning opportunity, down that pathway, but also an opportunity to be vulnerable in identifying that the way you might prefer to do something may not necessarily be the best way
Right, that's right.
to be able to do that, right? And so, certainly I hear a lot of agility in terms of, how you think through certain things, and certainly really appreciate, that perspective and understanding that, when you are coaching individuals, that this perspective is likely kind of coming front and center because Lord knows every place you go is always one. I'm gonna just
Always.
I'm gonna just keep it a buck, right? It's always one, and that one is going to stretch you in different ways,
Right.
right? It might be emotionally, it might be mentally, it might be physically, right? I tell people all the time, the reality of the situation is if you work a 9 to 5, yes, 33% of your physical time, physical space might be towards that job, but around 50 to 65% of your mental space is going to be associated with it, right?
That's
You have the wind up time when you're going there, and then you have the wind down time when you're leaving there, right? And as you become a high performer and as you start to inherit or acquire additional responsibilities, that percentage differentiation decreases even more in terms of what you might identify as free space, right? And so your ability as a leader to be versatile, be nimble, be agile, be empathetic, have a listen first mentality is going to be critical to being able to maintain a healthy mental state, let alone quality physical working environments.
Absolutely. And to that point, when you listen, your team likely knows better than you how to get certain things done. Especially the further and further up you go in leadership, you're further and further away from the actual execution and the tactical efforts.
Yes.
So your team can tell you, hey, if we do it this way, it'll save us, 10 days to do it this way, 50% of the time. And so listening first is also just an efficiency play and a practicality play of, hey, my team knows how to do this better. I don't have to take on the mental weight of trying to do this. I can let them drive it, and it also allows them to feel empowered and engaged because I'm not trying to micromanage everything. I'm listening to them, I'm taking their input, I value that, and I'm letting them run with it. And at the same time, I'm protecting my own mental space. Because I will say, the further and further up I went in my corporate career, you're spending all day in meetings and fighting fires and all those things. So it's not until the day is over that it's like, oh well, let me go and do real work now, right?
Right.
And so it's like that 33%, that number starts to creep up real fast because the whole day you're serving your team, and then now it's 6 o'clock, and it's like, all right, let me get to all the 400 things I was hoping to do.
Right. Which is why I'm thankful that we're even having the time to talk right now. But just kind of a quick build to what you said, right? There's going to be points in your career where you're doing the work. There's going to be points in your career where you are influencing the work, right? And then there becomes a point in your career where you set the vision that influences the work that actually gets executed, right? And your ability to be able to navigate and recognize the adjustments or the nuances at those varying stages is going to have a direct correlation, right, with the success that you will see, not only as an individual contributor, right, but as an enterprise leader. So if I'm picking up what we're both putting down, right, it sounds as if listening uh, is critical, right, to being a great leader. What are some other qualities or characteristics that you feel are necessary to not suck as a leader?
Yes. So I actually got asked this question at a conference a couple months ago, and the person asked me. They said, "What is the one characteristic that good leaders have, and that leaders that are not that great don't have?" And I said, "It's empathy." Oh, so the number one thing that leaders need to have in order to not suck is empathy. Because what happens is you can listen, but if you are not empathetic, whatever that person's telling you, you're not going to absorb, and you're not going to really be understanding of where that person is or where they're coming from. And for a lot of leaders, they forget that they were once a frontline employee, once an associate or an analyst, right? They get to a certain level and I've arrived now. And they forget that the people who are working for them are going through the same struggles that they used to.
Mm.
And so having that level of empathy and understanding as to what it was like to be there, and also in a situation now where we're all living in a post-pandemic world where things are just not the same, and understanding that people's lives have changed drastically. So empathy is one big thing. The second thing, and I can't stress this enough, is courage. Courage. There's so many leaders that are willing to just go along with the company line or the party line because they're not going to cause ruffle any feathers, right? So things, they keep the peace and they get things done, but they're bringing down things on their people and not caring about what's happening to the team because they're just trying to play nice in the sandbox. And as a leader, I got this quote from a friend of mine on my live stream. He said, "Self-preservation is not a leadership trait." Enrique Gonzalez gave that to me. And for a lot of leaders, we are trying to preserve ourselves, forgetting that that's not our job when you step into a leadership role. So you have to have the courage to step out of that. And then the last thing is the ability to realize what is a must do and a nice to have. Whatever is urgent is not always important, and what's important is not always urgent. And being able to make the distinction between those things and what do we have to do versus, hey, we could do this later, is really important, because that's how you cultivate an environment where people feel like they're doing purpose driven work and they're trying to achieve an objective versus we're just trying to check off a bunch of tasks and go through this checklist. So those are some of the key things that I would highlight just right off the bat. I've got a laundry list, but those are top three for sure.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, one of the buzzwords in the marketing industry and, within the leadership construct as well is authenticity.
Mhm.
Talk to us about, um, the balance and being authentic, right? That leaders face, because certainly, there's a balance for the title and the position, and then there's a balance with regards to the influence that the person occupying that title or position actually has. Talk to us a little bit about authenticity.
And I put that, empathy, I think honesty and authenticity often go in there as well because
Okay.
showing up as a human person, right? And so that's where the authenticity comes in. Instead of just showing up as I'm a company representative, right? I work for so and so, I work for the color group. And so what I say is just going to be color group rhetoric versus, hey, this is me, Julia, showing up. And this doesn't, and I think people mistake vulnerability and honesty and authenticity for weakness or for lack of professionalism or what have you. But the truth is, the people who work for you want to know that you're a real human being. You're not a robot, you're not a machine. They want to know that you're a real human being because that's how they can relate to you. That's when they're going to come to you and bring problems. That's when they're going to come to you and bring ideas. But if they don't see you as a real person with genuine feelings and genuine perspectives, independent of the organization, it's going to be hard for you to get things out of them. And so what we also have to realize is authentic doesn't mean we doing what we doing outside, doing that at work. Right? Like the same way that you have an inside voice and an outside voice, that's also the same thing at work. Just authentic doesn't mean we just doing the same thing everywhere. It's showing up as who you are in the fullness of that, but in the context of a workplace. So I think, and for leaders, they may find it hard to strike that balance, but the idea is, how did you want your leader to talk to you? That is the barometer that I use all the time. When I'm talking to anybody on my team or anything like that, it's like, what was it like for me when I felt like my boss was being kind of coy or mysterious or just trying to be robotic? I didn't like that. So how can I come across in a way where I'm still sharing what I need to share, but they're seeing it from a human, real perspective?
Hmm. So, with that being said, I guess I have to follow that up by asking the generation of leaders today, what are some of the common challenges that you're seeing that the generation of tomorrow needs to take heed of as they prepare to be the next generation leaders?
Yeah, so we have a mix of generation of leaders now, right? So you have folks who are in Gen Z that are now stepping into leadership, the 20 somethings, right? They're now stepping into that. And one of the common challenges that they're coming up against is being in a workplace that is not set up for the life that they're used to, right? If you were in a completely digital age and you're doing everything online, a lot of the larger organizations, they're behind on technology. They have a lot of folks who may be from older generations. So being able to come in and show a certain level of leadership may be difficult for them. And so part of how you address a challenge like that is making sure you're taking the time to listen to the folks who are there before you try to rip up everything and say, I'm going to change everything. Many of the organizations today, they need change, they need transformation, they need to move into the 21st century for sure. But what happens when you're young and you don't have any context, you may be trying to make changes that can alienate other people instead of bringing them together. So that's where the listening part comes in. And on the flip side of that, you have the older leaders who are the young people don't want to work. They're entitled. They don't want to do anything. And so they're facing these challenges with retaining talent and getting the best out of them because they have this mindset. But if they would take themselves back to what is it that this person's actually looking for? Is it that they're lazy, or is it the work is boring? Is it that they feel entitled, or is it truly that flexibility is something that we all want, right? Or are they always on their phone, or are they just looking for us to be more technology savvy? So it's like, are we asking the right questions as an older generation of leaders and actually listening to what the new generation is saying? And so it's really taking the time to understand who you're leading, taking the time to listen to them and understanding what challenges they're facing and how you can remove those obstacles versus just bringing in your biases and I want to go ahead and rip up everything that's happening. So those are some of the biggest challenges that I've seen. And then the last thing I'll mention is burnout is becoming a lot more prevalent, and it doesn't even matter at the age at this point. People are just burnt out. And so part of the challenge is making sure that as you are sharing the work that people need to do, making sure the work is purpose driven and it's not task driven. So that people understand that if you're committing your time to this, it's not just because I want you to do it. It's because it's feeding the larger vision. It's feeding the larger strategy. If you don't do this, we're not able to get to this goal. So that the individual that's working there, they understand that, hey, my role is valuable. The work I do is not busy work. It's making a real contribution. And that's one of the ways that you can help prevent burnout.
Do you, with what you just said, and certainly the onslaught of attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, do you see purpose-driven work being in the crossfire of what appears to be an attempt to reset how a lot of corporations are operating?
So, so the way that I would put that is purpose can be interpreted in a number of different ways,
Correct.
right? And so right now, DEI is being attacked on all sides. But the question then becomes, what's the essence of what DEI was trying to do, right? So whatever we call it, put that aside for a second. What was the essence of what we were trying to do? If we're trying to create a workplace where you're bringing in the best talent from wherever they are, where you're getting the best ideas and the best perspective to get the right results, that is something that is still a purpose and should be a purpose for any organization, because that translates directly to the bottom line. The better the talent, the better the productivity, the better the margins and profit. That's just business sense, right? So it really becomes like, what is the essence of that? And then purpose also means different things to different people. And that's why, as a leader, it is your job to understand what is it that your person or your people are looking to get out of their roles. And that's why having one-on-one discussions, having team meetings are important. That's why it's necessary for you to understand, what's this person's why? What do they value? And how does that line up with what the organization values? And honestly, you should do that in the hiring phase. Don't wait till you hire them, but that's a different discussion. But what is it that they value, and how does that tie into the organization? Because then you're able to highlight specifically about the work that they're doing, how that ties into their purpose. So, but that's why being a leader, it's time intensive, because you have to take the time to get to know people, what drives them, what motivates them, and what's their why for being there. And then you can really highlight the purpose. And it may not be something that you would have thought of. They can say, hey, I want to make this kind of a contribution. I care about this or that. And then you can tie their work to that vision for them.
Hmm. Earlier on, you talked about that, you really enjoy mentoring,
Yes.
and coaching and developing. Who's been a mentor to you, though?
Oh man, I am so fortunate because I've had some amazing mentors. I had a mentor at my last company by the name of Lily, and what she did for me was really help me to understand how to exist in the organization in a way that my career could thrive, and how to navigate the toughest situations that a Black woman would face, because she's also a Black woman. And helping me to understand that it's okay for me to take up space. And I think a lot of times, especially for Black people, we go into corporate, I don't want to make friends. I don't want to do nothing. I'm just here to get my paycheck and go. Or we don't want to speak up in certain meetings and other settings. And she made it very clear to me. She's like, Julia, the way that you can be successful here is for you to be okay with taking up space, raising your hand, asking the questions, asking for the assignments, sitting at the table, whatever table you can sit at, sitting at that table. That's how you find success. And that wasn't just for that career path, that translated into everything else I did outside of work, not being afraid to take up space when it came to my business, when it came to opportunities that I could be a part of externally. I'm like, it's okay for me to take up space. It's okay for me to be talkative and to raise my hand for things. I don't have to be quiet or put myself in a box. And I'm still so. I mean, she and I still keep in touch even after I've left the organization, and I can't thank her enough for that.
Well, well, well. Listen, I reference dope thinkers, and at the Color Group, right? We define or we describe a dope thinker as someone or something that elevates products or categories or people through the lens of cultural and inclusive intelligence. And Julia Rock has certainly had that on full display. I will make it a point to kind of get you some type of hat, whether it's a snapback beanie. You let me know what your style is, and
Appreciate you.
and we'll get you taken care of. Um,
Thank you.
but I guess I wanna close this interview out with this one question. Name me three of the dopest thinkers that you know, and why are they dope thinkers?
Ooh, ooh. Three of the dopest thinkers that So one is my favorite rapper, Sean Jay-Z Carter.
Okay.
And I think him being able to transition a lifestyle of that what folks would say is less than seemly, right? Being in the drug game and other things, right? Less than
I see the
seemly.
vocabulary on this right now. I love it.
And really being able to take that and transition it into such a successful businessman, and doing it with there's some scandal now, obviously, but he did it relatively without a certain level of scandal. It was truly just hard work and building his own thing and then transitioning it into the right rooms. So Sean Jay-Z Carter would be one. Um, Another one, is Barack Obama. They talk about him being a skilled orator and that kind of thing, but Michelle's a better speaker than him. But what I saw is his ability to navigate 8 years of opposition. Like the man or hate his politics, whatever, but he was able to expertly navigate 8 years of an onslaught of opposition and still manage to be a beacon of hope to a lot of people around the world.
Hmm.
So that's one person. And then the last person I would say would be my mom. My mom, living in Barbados right now, living her best life,
Wow.
growing her own produce.
Wow.
But what I have found is that no matter what life has thrown at her, one, she's found a creative solution to get around that. I mean, she left Barbados and started a life in the US and did all those things. But she's also managed to keep God at the forefront of everything that she's done in some way. And being able to show that when your mind is in tune with what God has for your life, that you can see whatever the success it is that you want, overcoming whatever adversity, whatever challenges. And so that is how I live my life now. So I would have to say my mom is the last one. Save the best for last.
The doors of the church are now open.
Amen. So let's pass around the collection plate.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, thank you for the gems and the jewelry that you dropped. Certainly, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Thank
I
you.
hope the listeners have as well. If people want to connect with you, how can they find you?
Yes. So I'm on all the platforms at the Julia Rock. So Julia Rock. I'm also on LinkedIn. So my handle is Julia-Rock. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. So that's one of the best places to connect with me. And if you want to learn more about my business, it's www.rockcareer.com.
All right, put some respect on her name. She said the.
The.
All right, with that get familiar, right? With that being said, Julia, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope everyone else has as well. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. And as always, we'll see you next time. But we always do everything with love. Peace out.